Good evening, ladies, and Chodesh Tov. This is CyberStem's Chodesh Tov program, and with great Hashgacha Pratis, tonight is the Rosh Chodesh, is the night between the 2 days of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And it doesn't always happen that way. Some years, Cheshvan and Kislev are 1 day, and some years, 1 month is 1 day and the other month is 2 days. But this year, Chodesh Kislev has 2 days. And not always does our Chodesh Tov program fall out on Rosh Chodesh, because if our program is on Thursday night, then it's going to take 7 months till it happens again. So this is a really great Hashgacha Pratis for us to be starting the new year since the Yontif season with, right on Rosh Chodesh itself. So today, Thursday, was Rosh Chodesh, was the last day of Cheshvan, and tomorrow is Aleph Kislev, a very special day to introduce a very special month. Now, I showed Michele before that the bio that she sent me was very tiny, and I really can't read it. I mean, I could, but it would take me time. It's like a 3-page document squished into a 7-font size document in 2/3 of 1 page. So that, I think, is enough to tell you how difficult it would be for me to read it, at least smoothly, in a couple of minutes. So what I did, Annie, we're just starting. You're not missing anything. It's just my introduction. But Michele says that her claim to fame is her entrepreneurship. And so really the two of us, besides being a mother, and that's the most important thing, but even her spirit of being a mother is going to be impacted by her spirit of being an entrepreneur. And I have to say that we really could become wonderful friends. This is the first time I'm meeting Michele, because I call myself an educational entrepreneur. In my feelings of and my attitude towards chinuch, and women's chinuch in particular, I really reached out on a limb, and I see how much of I won't call myself a visionary because that's really much too highfalutin, but I really did see years ago what was coming, and I built CyberStem on a little bit of knowledge that I didn't see what was happening, but I saw what was existing then. I couldn't have known then what was going to be today, but I tell you, the little seeds, the little windows that I saw then when I started CyberStem and went back to school for CyberStem really did pan out, and in a way much bigger than I could have ever dreamed, much greater. So in that sense of going out on a limb, we'll call it, I'm an entrepreneur, just like Michele, in that same space with that kind of mindset of who we are.
Amazing.
I want to introduce, so I don't have all this to say about Michele, but I do want to introduce it with a story. And I think this is really appropriate based on what Michele did write in her bio that we included on the intro to tonight's event. And that is that there's a story. There was once a man who he had been on the top of the wheel of fortune, and it happened that he lost everything. And he ended up having to do a lot of physical work himself. It was before the days of the technology that we have today. And what he did is he downsized his house. He downsized his house. He had to work the fields. He didn't have anybody to help him. His children had to help him. And that was what he did. He planted seeds, and he was hoping that he would have vegetables for his family to feed them throughout the winter. Well, it happened one day when he was working in the fields that an old man came to him. And he said, and the man came to said, Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom. And the man said to, the Hashem, the one above, he wants to give you, you have been chosen to get a certain treasure. And I want to know if you want the treasure guys, shh, Toda, do you want the treasure now when your children are young? Or do you want it when you're older and you won't be able to work so hard? Okay. So the man answered him, okay, I would like to ask my wife. So he said he got the old man settled under the tree so he would have some shade. And he went home with his oldest son who was helping him in the field. And he asked his wife. And his wife thought for a moment and she said, we want it now. So he went back to the old man and he said, my wife says that we'd like it now. So the old man said, when you get back to your house, go back to your house. But before you get to the gate, you're going to see that your children are going to have found already their treasure house. A huge treasure is going to be waiting for you. And that is exactly what happened. He went home, this Abraham went home with his son, and the kids were already jumping. By the time they got to the gate, the children were already jumping that they had found this treasure chest in the earth, and they were showing the glistening gold coins that they found, and the diamonds and whatever they found in this big crate. And so the husband and the wife, the kid says, Mommy, buy us candy, buy us treats, buy us. They had a whole list ready. And she said, no, we're going to do a chesed with this.
Beautiful.
And then if there was a poor child or there was a child who didn't have a parent and needed tefillin or needed a bar mitzvah made, or a kala who didn't have a way of making a wedding, they would give money from this treasure chest. And the children learned that they could pass on this thread of kindness from one person to the next, and they could always do that chesed. And the kids kept asking, what will it be if we give all this money to someone else? There's not going to be anything left for our tefillin when we get to be that age. And their mother kept encouraging them, when you do good with your money, then there will always be enough for everybody. The thread of kindness, this chesed, is always going to be there. And so it came to the end of the year. And Avraham, this husband, was plowing in the field, and guess who appeared? We know that it was the old man. And he said, it's been a year already. It's time to give back the treasure that Hashem gave you. So the husband, he went and he said, I accepted the gift on my wife's advice, and now I'd like to give it back also on her advice.
Beautiful.
And isn't it beautiful? And he said, yes, thank you. That's interesting. So the old man said, fine, but this time I want to come with you. So Avraham and the son and the old man went back to the house, and they went back to the wife. And Avraham said to his wife, the old man has come back, and he says, it's time, the year is over, and it's time that we are giving back the gift. And the wife answered, and this is tremendous seichel. She says, if you can find another, I get the shivers, I tell you every time I tell this story. If you can find another family who will use it in the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to use it, then you can have it back. If you can find another couple, another family who will do better with Hashem's money than we have, then it's yours. And then he said, no, you can continue keeping it. And this family has put for generations, it's an old story, but for generations, this concept of chesed and thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu and having this Hashem mindset of how we spend our money and our business. And I think that's a really great introduction for how Michele lives. And she's bringing that story practically into her lives, and now by extension into
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Well, thank you. And yes, I totally agree with you. And I just want to say, good evening to all of you. Thank you for asking me to be a guest speaker and to be able to share my personal experience and seeing Hashem's hand in my family's life and my business. At first, while you're going through the experience, as many of you can relate, you don't really realize and understand why you're going through things. You're just faced with a sudden change, and a sudden change, and you have to work on figuring out like what to do next. you scramble and you try to make sense of it all. And I'm sure this has happened to all of us. When we personally, me and my husband, recap our story to our friends and family, and my husband shares the story to university students, to yeshiva students, and in many shiurs that he does. It just acts as a reminder of how powerful Hashem's hand was for us personally throughout the course of our business and our personal life for the last 15 years. So I wanted to share it with you all. Let me take you back, if I may, a little bit of back history into my childhood and where I started. I grew up in a traditional Sephardic home with parents and siblings living a very secular life, but having Shabbat and celebrating the holidays as we're supposed to. My mother's Moroccan, my dad's Tunisian, which makes for a very interesting upbringing. And my mother does and always believes in God. She's, till this day, spends most of her days praying and talking out loud. When I ask her, Mom, like, who are you talking to? She says, God, of course, like as if, of course she's speaking to God, but really never practiced observing the Torah commandments. I don't fault her for that, of course. And I know it's not easy. Then comes my father, who grew up very different. He grew up forced at a very young age, at the age of 7, to take on way more than he was supposed to. He moved to Israel at the age of 7 when his dad passed away with his mother and siblings. And he was put to work right away. He barely finished elementary school, and he worked with his brothers in Israel fixing cars, which later led him to become a mechanic for now 40 years. Judaism and spirituality was never a part of his life. And unfortunately, he shunned away from it because of all the hardships he went through. Needless to say, I grew up with a father who didn't really believe in God and a mother who really did. But was limited to what she can do because, naturally being married to someone that doesn't makes it very difficult. So why is this important? Because this was the foundation that I grew up in. My father seemed to be a lot more overpowering. So let's move forward a bit now. When I met my husband, we got married and started our life, Baruch Hashem, in 2003. We had our son, Ethan, in 2004, and we bought our first home. I was 25 and my husband was 27, and he studied securities and became a financial advisor. And soon after we got married, he started working for Nesbitt Burns downtown Toronto. A little bit of background on me. I've always and still always have an entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm very excited about business. The thrill of making connections, selling, closing deals gets me like super excited. I enrolled in an aesthetic course at the age of 18 prior to starting university, and I started working from my parents' home while in university. Once university was done, I knew I had to jump into working at home full time. And I wanted to start building what I believe was going to be the greatest business as an esthetician. For those of you who don't know what an esthetician is, we mostly focus on like manicures, pedicures, waxing for the most part. Once I got married, I took my clientele and set up shop in my new home. I was super busy because I was young, I was hip. All the young, 20-year-olds wanted to come to me for aesthetics. It was amazing. But that wasn't enough for me. I thought, how do I make the most of having my clientele base? How do I make the most money while I have my clients at home? What can I do? How can I maximize the time that I spend with them? And that's always been ingrained in my head. Like, how do I make the most of whatever I'm doing? So I thought, okay, I want to start making jewelry. So I went to a supplier and I bought jewelry, and I started making beaded bracelets. And I sold them for an additional $10 to $15 as an upsell with the manicures. And that's exactly what I did for a while. Then one day, one of my favorite clients, a regular customer, came and told me that she wanted me to attend a bar mitzvah of one of her clients. She was a party planner and offer these custom bracelets on location as an add-on to her guests, for the guests. So without hesitation, I said, yes, of course. So that's where I got started. So let's fast forward now a few years. That one bar mitzvah that I attended making jewelry turned into 2, then turned into 3, and then it turned into 3 a weekend. We expanded so fast that my husband had no choice but to quit his financial advisory job and join me in this quickly expanding event add-on business, which we built and added new activities for these guests. We hired staff and more staff. It was booming. Now, at this point, both my husband and I were not observant. We didn't keep, we had Shabbat dinner with our families, and we were brought up that way. We went to shul on holidays, but that was pretty much it. As we continued on, we had a turn of events one night as one of the parties, about a year into the business, that same party planner came up to us and told us of this new exciting concept called Dippin' Dots. It's like a little kosher beaded ice cream concept that just launched in Canada. And she saw it being offered in vending machines in malls in Markham and in Vaughan, and thought to herself, this would be a great food add-on to any simcha. So she asked me to contact the number on the back of the machine, and of course I did. That phone call led to the first new chapter in our business life, a new endeavor, serving novelty ice cream, little beaded ice cream at bar and bat mitzvahs. Sorry, one second. Pardon me. Serving novelty ice creams at bar and bat mitzvahs. Then that slowly continued on. Let me just find out one second. From that time, we decided then, we continued on, sorry. Let me just find out where I was. I just want to make sure I'm getting the story correct. Just launched in Canada. Oh, sorry. So we continued on. So that one night party with the same party planner that introduced us to this business, took us to the concept called Dippin' Dots. We just launched it in Canada. And she saw it being offered in vending machines. We took it over. That phone call led to the new chapter in our business life, a new endeavor, serving novelty ice creams at bar and bat mitzvahs, and then finally owning the Ontario rights to the beaded ice cream concept. That continued for a few years. Then I had a baby. I had my little daughter at this time, and I was in the midst of running my aesthetic business from home while having 2 kids, the event business on the weekends, and now serving ice cream carts at simchas. So if we weren't busy enough, Hashem had further plans for us. The idea popped into my head. How do we differentiate from other event add-on companies? How do we stand out? What can we do differently in the bar and bat mitzvah industry? I wanted to sort of shake up the bar mitzvah industry. So I thought, why don't we create mobile food carts, like fun food carts? And potato chips happen to be my favorite snack food. So I thought to myself, how do we bring potato chips into the bar and bat mitzvah circuit? Well, it was as if Hashem heard me say this out loud, and of course, not realizing at the time. We soon got introduced to 2 brothers who invented a potato chip fryer, and we got introduced to them from a mutual friend of ours. And they wanted to take that potato chip fryer into a retail concept, and they were looking to expand. And this is a time where we happened to meet them. So I said to my husband at that moment, I knew that this was our ticket to the mobile event business. We told them, the 2 brothers, about the idea of serving warm, fresh potato chips on location at these bar and bat mitzvahs as a party add-on. So when you come into the bar mitzvah, you see our chip cart. I had this whole vision. You come in, you see the chip cart. We serve you warm chips, and he loved the idea. And again, it was a huge hit. We were probably doing about 3 or 4 events a weekend. And it was just phenomenal. Now, this is where it gets interesting. As we started serving both ice cream and potato chips at these events, people would approach us and ask us, are we in malls? Like, can they get this potato chip concept or Dippin' Dots anywhere else? And we weren't at the time. And I thought, that's a brilliant idea. Why don't we take our potato chip and ice cream carts and bring it to the retail mall business? So that's what we did. So I approached Yorkdale, and just to name a few, Bramley City Center, Scarborough Town Center, Vaughan Mills, And I asked them, because that's what I do. I told them about the concept, and I introduced the first ever co-branded concept. And I'm not sure if any of you guys, this is talking about, 12 years ago, visited one of our kiosks, but they were amazing. We had sweet on one side and savory out of the other side. Our first location was at Vaughan Mills, and then quickly turned into 8 retail locations across the GTA. We then opened up 3 in Calgary. And in a matter of 2 years, we were running and operating like 11 locations. It was unbelievable. Business was booming for us, Baruch Hashem. At this time, we had no idea that Hashem's hand was literally controlling everything until the mid-2010. Picture this. We had 8 locations in the GTA. We had 3 locations in Calgary, events happening on Saturday and Sunday evenings. Yes, on Shabbat. And it just so happened that Saturday in the retail business is the busiest day of the week. It's the highest traffic in the malls. If you're not working on Saturday in the retail business, you're not making money. So this is what went down. One day, literally one day, I woke up and my husband opened his drawer and he put on a pair of tzitzit. And then he opened up another drawer and he put on his kippah out of the blue. And it was a Tuesday, because I remember specifically this day like it was yesterday. This was about 15 years ago, and these kinds of things don't happen too often, so I remember it vividly. I asked him, what's going on? Like, what were you doing? What are you doing? Like, we're in our room one morning and suddenly he puts on what I saw as religious garment. And then he told me that the night previous, he was given this CD, a Torah CD. In fact, the CD was called Torah and Science. It was life-changing. He normally doesn't listen to rabbis because he's heard a lot of rabbis, and growing up, he's, never really took the time, I would say, or wanting to listen to these rabbis. But this one specifically came from a friend of his, and he insisted and insisted. And the rabbi of the CD and the content on this CD has such a profound effect on him and made him fall asleep that night and have this crazy, crazy dream. Now, this dream, he says, was like no other. He couldn't articulate what his dream was about, but I knew that I was looking at a different man. A man who felt and heard something that would forever change him. I still get emotional a little bit about it. The thing is, I didn't know what to think or expect. A day later, he mentions the idea of how he would love to keep the Sabbath or Shabbat and would love for me and the kids to join him. I had no idea what was involved with doing that. And I wasn't ready to take it on, to be honest, at least not yet. So when Shabbat came, he went to shul, got dressed up in a suit, looking amazing. And that morning, he went to shul that morning and then stayed home the rest of the day and hung out with my kids. And keep in mind, Saturday for us was the busiest day. So I went and I packed up and I got everything organized and I went to the malls. And I had to do 8 different mall locations, and I was stressed, and I had to refill the inventory of product. I had to supervise staff and collect the weekly cash out. But it was, to be honest with you, when I came home and I saw him with my kids, I had no idea the profound impact that Shabbat had on him. Sorry, one second. It just keeps on business. It was honestly life-changing. So the following week approached, and sure enough, he was getting himself ready for Shabbat. But at this time, he was making plans in the house as well. He was preparing the home for Shabbat. He started off with timers. He put on those magnetic clips over the lights. He plugged in everything. He got like the candles ready. He got the wine ready. He spent his morning at shul, and then when he got home, he got lunch ready. Like, he was doing everything, no pressure on his end towards me. When he got home, he set up everything, and then he was playing with my kids. Then comes me, okay, that same Saturday. I was uptight, high strung, anxious, checking my cell phone secretly, as if the day was no different than the rest of the week, trying to convince myself that this is just a phase that he's going through, and I wasn't really having it, to be honest. 2 more weeks went by like that, and he asked me if I would join him in keeping Shabbat, or at least try to. I agreed. And we decided one Shabbat in late October to observe as many mitzvahs as we can, as we knew of at the time. I thought to myself, I need to drink the Kool-Aid. I need to know what he's going through. He seemed so happy, and I was so not. Well, needless to say, it was the best day of my life. I mean, I gave it my all. I gave it my all, and threw myself into it completely. I loved every second of it. But what was not to love? Like, no cell phones, no running around the city, no stress, no anxiety, being with my children, like seriously incredible. And that's when our lives changed, where Hashem touched us, but we still had no idea. Within 2 weeks of us keeping Shabbat properly, or at least what we thought was properly, we started getting all these phone calls. One call was from a landlord where we were forced to close 2 of the 8 kiosks due to water installation problems. Listen to this. The next phone call was, installation problems, because it would cost us thousands of dollars. So we didn't have the money to put out to fix the water installation problem. The next, then we got another call from someone who told us that they're very interested in buying our business. They wanted to buy 2 kiosks from us, but my business wasn't even for sale. Like, I'm not kidding. Out of the blue, we got these phone calls. We did nothing to actively sell these locations. Our lease term was up on the remaining 2 locations, and we were up for renewal. And guess what? They didn't want to renew us. Surprise, surprise. So essentially, all 8 locations were off our hands within a month. A month. We went from running 8 locations, keeping Shabbat, and all 8 locations within a month, gone. So essentially, Hashem allowed us to do this very easily. But we had no idea at the time what was going on. We were very scared, and it was an understatement to say that we were thinking our life was just shutting down. We were actually puppets in Hashem's miracle hands, guiding and making it so easy for us to keep the holy Shabbat. But it gets better and crazier. Our event business was still keeping us afloat, and so we thought. But most of the parties that we were hired for happened on Saturday evenings. So in the winter months, it would work, but of course, in the summer months, it wouldn't. That posed a big problem for us. So now we were left with no kiosk business, no event business, and no other source of income. All of a sudden. But we all know that Hashem wouldn't let that happen, especially when you're trying to do one of his biggest mitzvahs. So if not a week into all this happening, the founders of the ice cream company, Dippin' Dots in the US, literally the week later, within that week, notified us that the Ontario rights holder had finished their contract and left the country with literally nowhere to be found, picked up one night, and abandoned ship, literally abandoned ship, and asked if we would take over the Canadian rights to this brand. Now, this might not seem like a huge deal, but if anyone knows here, to own an exclusive rights to a big brand in Canada cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? So when we got this handed to us, we were floored. We were in shock. But now we've got the ability to become distributors and manufacturers of this ice cream company or brand across Ontario and Canada. We opened up 60 vending machines that ran itself, and my husband can go and check on it anytime during the week. And we got into the biggest theater chain in Canada, in Cineplex. At the same time, on the potato chip side, we had this great concept that we used to use for events. And so we approached the 2 brothers and said, would you sell us the business or let us run the rights to Canada? Because we figured we ran the rights to Canada for the ice cream. Why not do it on the chip side? And they said no. Literally, we're in the office and they said no. So at that time, it seemed devastating because we've invested a lot in this potato chip mobile cart. So we had two options. We can either shut the concept down or start our own potato chip business. And guess what? That's what we did. We developed our own brand called Spudniks, created and designed and marketed the entire thing. We continued to find partners in the kosher food manufacturing business. And we were no longer involved with those two other brothers. We wanted to find someone that was a kosher. We wanted to make it kosher. That's what we knew. And we found a caterer that would work with us. But with most partnerships, not all the time, but most, it didn't work out. We were given a shotgun approach. And I don't know if you guys know what that is. Basically, they say, we want to buy you out for this price. Either we buy you out or you buy us out for the same price. We immediately said we would buy them out. And my husband spoke up, by the way, not me. I was just listening for a very small nominal fee, which led us to continue down the path, Hashem's path, of course, and build our own snack food brand and now manufacturing facility, Baruch Hashem. While my husband was working on building our snack food business, we got more involved with learning and growing spiritually. We started going to shul every Shabbat. We became closer to our community. And as it turns out, one lady who I became very close with, who now still is my best friend, we spent every Shabbat together with her family. And we're in the middle of after Shabbat, we were talking about a new concept that she was starting, a wellness clinic, and needed me to help her on something to develop the concept. And of course, as Hashem wanted it this way, I started helping her with the idea of creating a waxing and beauty business. Then one day it occurred to me that we can actually come together and form a new partnership and create a walk-in wax bar concept. Waxing was my favorite thing to do. So I said to her, instead of taking your wellness clinic, let's create the first ever of its kind, a walk-in wax bar concept. And just like that, of course, she agreed. I had the aesthetic background. She had the business MBA. We came together and we put the paperwork together. We put pen to paper and we created waxed wax bar, which to this day still exists at Promenade Mall. So I don't know if you know this, I don't know if you've seen it, if you've been there. It's an amazing business. And we also opened one on Avenue Road. But Hashem had a plan for us too. 2 years after opening Avenue Road, we got offered to be bought out from a staff member. And a few months before COVID hit, our lead esthetician of Promenade Mall approached us out of nowhere and offered to buy the location as a franchisee and took over. And we closed the deal literally 1 month before COVID hit. So as you guys know, when COVID hit, the mall business completely deteriorated. So Baruch Hashem said, I want to help you out. I will give you this opportunity, and allowed us to sell the business. So we didn't have to be part of that downturn spiral during COVID. The location now, thank God, and the woman that's running it, Aki, is incredible. So I strongly advise everyone to go and check it out. But this is another way where we saw Hashem's hand in my business and how he made things good for us. Ladies, when I say this story again and again, it blows my mind. We were completely guided by Hashem and his will. What's more amazing is that it took us becoming more observant to realize Hashem's hand in what we went through. And even to this day, our eyes are open to each event, each meeting deal, each event, each business, up or down, good thing or not seemingly good things that happen. We know it's for our ultimate best. Our approach in life, and mostly always in business, is let go, let God. So that's our new motto. Let go and let God. Because we know firsthand when you put 100% effort into anything you're doing, the outcome is always for your ultimate best. Today starts the month of Kislev, tomorrow. If you recall at the beginning of my story, it was the end of October approximately when my husband kept his first Shabbat. And several weeks in when I decided to as well. I mention this because when all these new changes started happening, we went back to the Jewish calendar and realized it all started to fall in place on Rosh Chodesh Kislev back in 2010, which happened to be the beginning of November that year. So why mention it? Well, I learned that Kislev is the month of light. This month lets the light in, and that Hashem is always supporting us this month. Kislev is the month of dreams, being hopeful. Yosef's dreams, a month of connection, a month of building new relationships, building a new life and trust. He who trusts Hashem, kindness will always surround him. And so, ladies, there's no coincidence that our lives took a drastic change in the month of Kislev. So Baruch Hashem for the best. I thank you for listening to my story, and my blessing for each of us is that we shine this month and we bring light into our lives and friends and families and our nation as a whole. Thank you for having me, and I hope you enjoyed my story. I can hear you. Hold on.
I muted myself because the kids were making a little bit of noise. I should have thought of this before. But Michele, thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, first of all, does anybody else have any questions? And then I want to ask you, Michele, can I take you out for a cup of coffee to sips so I can discuss CyberSem and see if we can brainstorm together some
1000%.
new ideas?
I didn't have time to really elaborate, but you were mentioning something about women empowering women. So this is going to sound a little crazy because you probably think, like, how many more things can she possibly do? So 2 years ago, I had a dream and I was actually in Los Angeles, and I wanted to bring entrepreneurial women or business women together on one platform. And I created something called the Women's Panel. And the Women's Panel, we meet every month. We have 4 panelists every month, and they come from, they're entrepreneurs, they're business women, any women in business. And it's been amazing. I've brought together over 2,000 women through this panel. Yeah. So
Wow.
my connection, yeah. And I'm all about women empowering women. So if there's ever, any, way or to get involved or helping other women with businesses, I do a lot of mentoring as well for young Jewish women students. In business, or yeah.
Someone gave you a hands up. It wasn't me, but I add to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies, any questions? Anything we want to ask Michele? Can you invite me to your next meeting?
Yes, it's on Zoom, but we're trying in January, God willing, we're going to do a get together for sure.
In Toronto?
In Toronto. Yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah. But I would love to help you with anything, of course. I'll try.
Okay. This was, and this is Hashgacha Pratis. A beautiful Hashgacha Pratis is that we're meeting.
Today
on your anniversary.
All started. Isn't that unbelievable? Yeah, 15 years ago. When I was telling my husband that I was asked to speak, he said, well, that's an HP moment right there. I'm like, yeah.
An HP moment. That's right. A Hashgacha Pratis moment. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Ladies, any questions for Michele? Anything that you're curious about? Any?
Okay. Hi.
Alto,
that's wonderful to hear. Really wonderful to hear. Were you ever fearful? Did you, like, before you became observant and understood that Hashem was guiding you, did you have fears and stress and sleepless nights?
Thank you, Annie, for asking. Yes. Extremely fearful. Extremely fearful. We were stuck. I remember, like, specifically, we were at home, my husband and I, and we had no business. We had our son. We had a home. We had a mortgage. We literally were shut out of everything at one point. We didn't know what to do. We were looking at ideas of, do we have to sell the house? Do we have to ask our parents for help with the mortgage? So extremely fearful. And I'll be honest with you, now, fast forward 15 years, when something goes wrong, I look at my husband. We sit in board meetings all the time, and we're sitting with a big customer, and the customer says, well, I'm sorry, we can't do this deal. And I look at my husband and he's smiling. I'm like, what are you smiling about? Like, and then I realized why he's smiling.
Hashem is going to provide something
Right,
bigger
like it
than
doesn't
this.
matter. Like so that big customer, which I think was a huge customer, we find out because now we're so tuned into it. Like when you really go through it and you become so tuned to having having Hashem in your life, it's as if like you don't worry. It is, and it's really like it takes, especially with business, it takes the biggest load off your back. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, what do I do now? I'm waiting on this call, and do I call them? Do I not? I said, listen, you give your 100% effort into it. Did you call them already? Yes. Did you email them already? Yes. That's it. That's it. And like it just happened the other day. I'm trying to sell a piece of equipment. I'm trying to sell it for so long. I'm like, I just need to get it out, but I don't want to lower the price. I'm like, Hashem, just help me find somebody. Where am I going to find somebody? Like, thank God it. And then out of the blue, we get this message. Are you still selling your machine for sale? I'm like, yes. And I'm thinking it's just another one of those, tire kickers. It's all it is really just letting go and not being stressed about it, because stress, they say when you stress, right, Hashem doesn't need to, right? That's another thing I learned. So do we still have anxiety and worries? Of course. I mean, that's being a woman. That's, that's natural, but right. But when it comes to business, I mean, I look at my husband, really, he's the strength, and he's really much better at it than I am. I might seem like I've got it all together, but when I look at him and he's like just laughing at this meeting when the guys looking at him like, why are you laughing? Like, and he knows it's like, because he knows it's for the best. So it doesn't bother him, And so he just brushes it off his shoulders and he says, okay, thank you very much for coming. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just found that before I understood that Hashem was guiding me, I had a lot, I could stay up all night thinking and losing sleep. And I didn't mind losing sleep because I like thinking about these things. But there was this thing holding me back. But once I understood Hashem was guiding me, it was like, if something doesn't work out, it's because Hashem didn't want me to lose out.
Right.
It was
right.
protection.
Like a weight off your shoulders, right? Like almost like,
yeah.
That's my approach with everything now. And I'll be honest with you, it gives you confidence. It makes you more confident going into something. And I'm reading this amazing book, It's All in Your Mind by Sarah Yosef. It's a really amazing book. And and part of the book is basically you manifest what you're thinking and how you, and everything that you feel. And so if you don't have that stress of like thinking that it's all in your hands and it's your control, then you go in more confidently. And when you're more confident, you like for true confidence. So they feel your energy. You've got this energy about you. Like I can go in and I can sell something to somebody, no problem, because if they say no, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I really genuinely don't care. Like, okay. And they're like, what do you mean okay? I'm like, that's fine. I'll move on and I'll try somebody else, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think we should try that. Like I think with anything that you're doing right now in life, just literally just put it in Hashem's lap and just say, this is yours. And so I don't need to worry, because if I'm worrying, he's not worrying. Right? That's the biggest thing I learned. If I worry, he's not worrying. So I don't want to worry. I want him, I want him to, this is what I say.
He's never going to worry. Like, he knows his plan.
He knows his plan, but I'm saying like, I don't need to worry. I look at him and I say, okay, you've got this, like that's what I do.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Beautiful.
So you do mentor a lot of women.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I do. I love speaking to women. I love telling them our story, because it's, especially when, women are just in business or starting off in their career, or, and they hear this, they're like, wow, that's really interesting. And that's really enlightening, because now, it makes me look at certain things very differently. So yes, I would love to speak to anybody. I mean, especially, I love it. I love empowering women if I can. I mean, I'm always learning myself, like always trying to grow and learn.
Yeah.
We're always like that. We have to be like that.
Yeah, if you're not growing, you're not living. So
yeah,
that's for sure. But I love this. I love speaking, and being able to share that story with others, because I think it's powerful. It makes you realize. And now people message me afterwards when my husband tells a story, if I tell a story, and they say like, now looking back, I see where my path changed and it was for the best. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and being observant just added to it. It was just like being opened up to a new reality.
right.
You know, like the path is there, and we just didn't see the path, and it's really great to be observant. It just adds to my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It's so true. And I'm always trying, you know, like I'm always growing every day. I'm learning and growing. And so I think, I think it's, and I think women, I do a book club on Monday night. I think, is Carney on here? I think Carney's on here. But I do a book club on Monday nights. I just started it recently. And we're learning 48 Ways to Wisdom.
Wow.
So you guys are all welcome in my house, but we sort of alternate homes. But you have to always learn. I think it's very important to learn and grow, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we're all about. That's why we get together. We get together to learn traditional things, and we get together with different women of different skill sets,
Yeah,
passions.
yeah,
And that's what keeps the world ticking. We've had this group since Purim. Annie, when did we started in Colette's house before Pesach, before COVID? So we're 3 years into COVID. It's got to be almost 6 years ago.
wow, beautiful.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
some people can come online, some people don't, but whatever, we used to be in person, and I don't know if we'll ever go back to person. It would be nice too, but some of the women were still apprehensive the last time we tried out. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll try again in the new year, in the new secular year. We've had our beginning of our 83 year already. So
Well, if you want a home to host anything, I'd love to host. So I would, yeah,
Okay,
I'd love to be involved.
okay.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for
Thank you
having me.
very much for coming,
you
Michelle.
so
This has
much.
been a really eye-opener experience. And thank you very, very, very much for joining us. And for all of the people that will hear us on YouTube, in addition to the group that came to us in person, and they managed to be able to come at this time
Yes,
on Thursday night. Have a good Chodesh, a light Chodesh. I would say in
amen.
Yiddish, a lichtike Chodesh, which makes a little bit more sense. We're coming close to Hanukkah, and our next program, Emir Hashem, will be during Hanukkah, because Rosh Chodesh Teves is in the Hanukkah season. So I look forward to that. And Annie, thank you very much. If you want, if anybody knows of anybody that would like to be on our mailing list, you can send me an email. I will put it into the chat. I'm going to send it to, we are changing from CyberSem. So I'm C Goldberg at machontemima.org.
And reach out to me afterwards. I'd love to help you with this.
I will. We have a WhatsApp. Just think of a time where I could take you to SIPs.
Anytime. As soon as I drop off my daughter at 9:00, at Netivot, which is right there, and I can just meet you. So anytime.
Super.
No,
Ladies,
yeah.
a good Shabbos, a good
Thank you.
Thank you. And please share this with your friends. All
Thank
the
you.
best. Thank you.
Bye-bye.